Welcome, everyone, to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm your host today. And welcome, everyone, in. We are, as always, we will take your questions at the, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Oh, I thank Gail Trotter. Thank you, Gail, for being the sponsor today. We love it when our Textiles and Tea angels take care of us. And we appreciate you being a sponsor for us today, Gail. Thank you so much. As always, we'll take the questions at the end of the program. Please put them in the Q&A. We love your chat. There's always great things in the chat, but I can't always see them. So if you would, put them in the Q&A. Today, we have Brecia Kralovic-Logan, and I think I just said her name wrong, but Brecia is a nationally recognized nationally recognized fiber artist and a champion for women's voices. For the past 8 years, she's been promoting creativity, community, and compassion through the Women's Woven Voices Project, an international collaborative fiber art project that supports women through writing and weaving and sharing their stories. She's been teaching fiber art for over 30 years and has been a speaker at the international art conferences such as the Handweavers Guild of America, Silk Painters International, Quilts Inc. She is a member of the California Fibers. Her artwork has been exhibited nationally and is in the collections of museums and private collectors. She's the author of The Spiral of Creativity, Mastering the Art of Spiritual Life, and a guidebook for personal creative growth. And we're going to talk about that some today, too. Hey, Brecia.
Hey,
come on.
I'm trying. Let's see.
Okay. It always works when you don't need it to. There we go. Yay.
My heart is pounding.
And everybody, it worked fine just a minute ago. I don't know what the problem was. It wasn't Brecia. She did it special. It was great.
Well, I'm so happy to be here.
We are glad to have you here. I feel like I've known you forever, especially through Convergence.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the really important question first, which is, what is your favorite tea?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm here. I've got my iced chai. I'm a big chai fan.
Ah.
And I put in a little organic chocolate tea bag to just make it a little more special.
I have to try that. I'm a chai fan myself. I love chai.
Yeah.
So how did you get started in fiber?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a fun little walk down memory lane thinking about that. And I learned how to knit when I was a kid and knit in high school, and then in college, this was just such a happy memory for me. So I went to school in San Diego, and one day I wandered up the coast to a little town called Encinitas, and there was a shop there called the Black Sheep. I don't think it's exists anymore, but it was a mecca of just fiber related things. And I just wandered, I didn't know what it was. I wandered in and, there was yarn and fleece and spindles and looms and just all of these things. And I had this overall, like encompassing feeling like I had just come home. And it was just, head to toe, heart, mind, spirit. I was like, oh, yeah, this is my place. And I just wandered all around, and I think I'd ridden my bike up the coast. Anyways, I didn't have a lot of money, but I walked out of there with this little rigid heddle, not a rigid heddle loom, just the heddle. And I took it home, and I had some, acrylic yarn at the time, and I measured some out with my arms and tied it to a chair and stuck it through the little rigid heddle, and I wove a scarf. And that was it. That just was my introduction. And I was smitten kitten right there. So, and then it just went from there. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to do it all. And it wasn't, I moved from California, I moved to the East Coast, and that's where I got my first spinning wheel at Old Brook Spinnery in New Jersey, and got a Harrisville 22-inch loom, put it together myself, and just started weaving on it. And that's what sparked the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I always love hearing people say that they get somewhere and they know they're home, whether
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
weaving store or a class or whatever.
Ah,
They know they're home.
it was physical, it was just
Yeah.
physical. I know this is what I need to do. Yeah.
Well, you make clothing, you do wall hanging baskets, and you excel at any variety of the materials that you use. And you stated that I coax vessels,
Oh.
sculptural objects, and fiber mixed media into being. I love that idea, that approach. But would you expand some on that, what that means?
Sure. As much as I fell in love with weaving, I also just like really love working three-dimensionally. And so the clothing was kind of a way to take flat pieces and put them together, but then have them become something, I think sculptural, especially the ones that I did. And then, I got into basketry, and I really loved weaving three-dimensionally, just creating things, creating shape. But I think probably the basketry is the one that kind of tipped me into the idea of kind of co-creating. And,
Mm.
especially when I really got into using natural materials, and I would harvest honeysuckle from my yard, and chop things off my olive trees. And I mean, just really using what was at hand. And you might have one idea, but the natural materials sort of have their own idea. And a lot of times when I was making something, a vessel, I really felt like, oh, well, the way to go with this is to co-create, is to just let the material speak to me and say, oh, I kind of want to go this way, and then say, okay, well, what happens if we do that, as opposed to just really having a strict plan in my mind and saying, this is the shape you will be. I just kind of wanted to see what happened. So I think that's where that statement kind of came from.
Co-create. I like that. That's
Yeah.
a unique way of looking at it. That's
Yeah,
great.
and it work it's even the same thing with the yarn or fabric. I look at it, and I just feel like there's something we could do together. Let's collaborate.
Well, you do all these materials and you're fearless. I mean, you just jump in there and go for it. So, are there particular properties of materials that you enjoy working with? Or is there certain things that really speak to you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess it would be, the color, of course.
Oh,
And,
okay.
that was just a wonderful expansion, of any creative and artistic person is, when you get to start to create the color yourself. So when you're able to, dye the fabric
Mhm.
and, I went down many different rabbit holes of that. I worked with Procyon dyes for a really long time and just had a great time playing with that. And then natural dyes. And I'm still playing all of the time with creating color. So I think, definitely that's the fun thing for me. And I also, I mean, I'm looking at these two pieces, and these are really good signature pieces. Good job. Because both of them were just kind of out of the box. The red one was a piece I did for a book that I was collaborating. Well, artists here in Carpinteria, California, where I'm at,
Uh-huh.
were paired with folks who were either caterers, restaurants, or chefs in our area. And we made a book called Small Town Big Appetite. And every artist was paired with either a restaurant or a chef. And you had to meet with them and then make a piece of artwork to kind of reflect their style of cooking, which was really fun. And I was paired with our famous local Chinese restaurant. And I met with them, and we just had this incredible conversation. And they were saying basically their food, their whole thing is just to create comfort for people, to just
Oh.
family, community, and comfort. And so I was trying to include the spiciness of the food and then the sense of, interwoven with the community. And so this is silk fabric that's woven and painted, and there's actually Tina was the gal that I collaborated with. We made a list of words like family and community and a bunch more, and she sent them to me in Chinese characters. And so
Oh.
I printed them out on silk and then dyed them, and they're tucked into this piece. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you looked really, really close, you would see some English words and some Chinese character words that have to do with community and caring. So that was really fun. That was a
What
little
a you
version of what you
so
asked.
unique. I don't know if I've ever would have thought of putting chefs and artists together. What a great idea.
Yeah, and the book is fantastic. It's a beautiful coffee table book. There was about 40 collaborators. And then the in the book, the restaurants put a recipe, a favorite recipe. So it's a recipe book.
Oh my
There's the artist
gosh.
artwork, and yeah, it was a really fun collaboration. And then the other picture that you had up there is the piece that's just hanging behind me, and
Oh, it is hanging behind you.
that's
Yeah.
actually going down to Newport tomorrow for a California Fibers exhibit. You mentioned that I was in California Fibers. Um, and again, I don't remember the original question, but what the heck? But so that piece was kind of like, where do I go after Women's Woven Voices with all of that, with straw weaving, had weaving on 5 soda straws. And so this piece was done completely on soda straws. There's
Oh.
13 separate pieces that are sewn together to create, it's called flow, and it's to create sort of a waterfall situation. And it was all done weaving on soda straws, just like Women's Woven Voices. So again,
Oh,
but
great.
this one's three-dimensional. So this one's curved and has like a real a lot of texture and a lot of spatial interest. So
Well, I've said that you're fearless, but I'm curious, what has there ever been a material, or maybe I should expand that into a project that you were uncomfortable or you had some fear about doing it? And how did you approach it?
yeah, that's a really great question, because that was really a big turning point for me as well, because I uh, I think when I first started out, I was exploring all of the different processes, And so there was a part of me, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but that just didn't want to invest in like more expensive materials, because I wanted to just learn and I thought I really needed to master things before I started spending a lot of money on my materials just in case. But somewhere along the line, I just decided that I really wanted to work with silk. And I bought enough silk yarn to weave a table runner for a wedding present for a friend.
Oh, wow.
And I was a little nervous putting it on the loom because it was very different than cotton and wool that I'd used before. And it cost me a lot of money. And so I was like, okay, I better not mess this up. So anyways, it turned out absolutely gorgeous. And I just realized, oh my gosh, if I'm going to spend the time and energy making anything, I just want to use the most beautiful, luscious, incredible materials. And so that just led me into just this whole exploration of silk. And I did go on a silk study tour in Japan, and we learned about sericulture and went to farms and laboratories and just had an incredible time. And I did raise silkworms, but this means that everybody should jump in next week, right? Because Karen Salk is going to be on, and I'm sure there's so much I could learn from her. But yeah, working with silk, and I still work with silk for my contemporary art pieces that I do on canvas, and I love it. I just love working with silk.
That really is a kind of a tricky balance because I think for people when they first start, especially, it's like, I'm not spending money,
Yeah,
because I'm going to mess it up. But then you're
yeah,
right. After you get done, it's like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard on that. I'm going to use good stuff next
yes,
time.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
true.
think it's, there's kind of a balance, because I remember taking a painting class where the teacher, I had never, I think it was a watercolor class, and I hadn't ever done watercolors before. This was years ago. And that teacher was like, okay, you have to go out and buy, a $15 piece of Strathford paper. And we're ordering, I don't know, Solinsky, we're ordering brushes from Russia, from the Minks or something. That's going to be whatever, $100 for your brush. And it was absolutely paralyzing. I mean, I could not do a single thing because it was too scary. And then after that, I took a drawing class where the teacher just had a big roll of brown paper and just said, okay, take 10 sheets of brown paper. We're going to do something and then throw it on the floor. And within, just a short time, you just relaxed and you're able to go, and you don't have that, I can't mess this up. So yeah, so that's just all a part of the creative process, and whether it's weaving or knitting or
Right,
ink
right.
or whatever, so there's a balance. There's a
Yeah,
balance.
one of my favorite stories from when I was an undergrad was I was taking a painting class,
Uh-huh.
and the instructor would walk up and he would take a brush, whatever you had laying around, and he would just kind of slap some paint on the canvas, and he goes, "Okay, it's ruined now. You can only make it better." And he'd walk
Yeah,
on to the next one, and it did.
yeah,
It kind of like, oh, pressure's off. All right,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
absolutely,
smart. Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I guess that's something that just gets me really excited because I have a background in psychology, and so you know, uh, all of these processes. I mean, this is all a part of evolving as a human being, right?
yeah, yeah,
What are they? There's a saying in business that it's personal development. All of business is personal development, and so what else is creativity and art and weaving? It's
yeah,
personal
yeah.
development. It's wonderful.
Well, I was reading about your desire to experience the whole process of
Mhm.
fiber, um, complete from you raised rabbits and sheep and silkworms. You mentioned silkworms, and then you grew the plants for the dyes, and then you processed everything and you turned the raw materials into workable materials, and then you finally wove it, spun it, felted it, sewed it, whatever. Now some people would say that's a little extreme, but what drove you to do that? Why did you choose that?
Love, love.
Love.
I mean, I really love the process. I really, really do. And not, I mean, of course, I love creating beautiful things. So the finished product is treasured, but I really do just love process. And yes, it's true. I actually had three Icelandic sheep in my backyard. At one point, I had two alpacas in my backyard and Angora rabbits and all of that, which were it was a little bit extreme, except for that it was when my kids were young, and I had this sort of fantasy that we lived on an acre of land, and I just thought, oh, well, they're just, they're getting to learn and have this experience,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of country mice, and I just really loved that. So yeah, so all of that just thrilled me, and that, going to Japan to learn more about how silk is raised, and curiosity, I guess. Just always being really curious about, well, how does this material come to be? And the basketry also just really thrilled me. I literally just we trimmed our olive tree 2 days ago. And so yesterday I was trimming branches and rolling them into little coils so that they could dry out in the coils so that I can reinstitute them in water later. And that's just become kind of a summer ritual with honeysuckle vines or whatever I've
Yeah.
got growing on my property. And it's so centering, and it's so yeah, it's just grounding. It's just really
Mhm.
grounding to participate in the materials. So
And I would imagine you view it differently too. I know I have a wall hanging that I dyed, and when I walk by it, I'm always like, I did that. I dyed that. So
yeah,
it
yeah,
changes your relationship with the piece.
it really does. And it's fascinating, and it's fun, and it's interesting, all of it. Yeah.
Well, again, you're brave. I love that. Well, you have an interest. Well, you have several things you've published, but you have a really interesting book, and it's called "The Spiral of Creativity and Mastering the Art of a Spirited Life." Now, you could write about a million things. You could write about, doing silk and painting and on silk and all the things that you do so well. Why this book? Why was this important for you to do?
Yeah, so this book is a creativity guide. Um, uh, my hope is that as you kind of work through it, it has activities and suggestions and journaling prompts, and so it's really very interactive for people. And I used Spiral as an acronym: the spirited, passionate, intuitive, real, authentic life choices or living. And so there's a little chapter on each thing and activities to do. Um, and I think that why it was so important was really that creativity is kind of the base of it all. So, why do I want to, raise my own materials or animals or whatever? I mean, curiosity, but the creativity part, that sparking of what is unknown and how can you play with it? How can you explore and discover, which is kind of my teaching mantra: play, explore, discover. And I think that it just really builds, creativity builds courage and strength. And I was a few years ago, I was on a podcast that really was had like nothing to do with weaving, but it had to do with men uh, learning to be more compassionate. And what we were talking about is that creativity is, you know, the willingness to be in the unknown. And so that
Mm.
really builds your strength. If you are courageous enough to try something when you don't know how it's going to turn out, that's a whole different thing than just knowing something or knowledge, that is passed down to you. It's an act of bravery, to step into the unknown, and I just love supporting people with that.
Well, you do it so well.
Oh, well, thank you.
You do that in the unknown so well, and you make it fun.
Yeah, well, I think it is fun.
Well, you this next piece, you called this the silk collage landscapes. You call them soul spaces. These two, and they're
Mhm.
just gorgeous. What is a soul space, and why are they represented by a landscape?
All right. Well, so this is work that I evolved, and this is kind of a funny story. I had a big studio up in the foothill. I've moved a lot of different times, so I'm like 6 studios past that studio.
Oh my
But I had
gosh.
a big studio up in the foothills, and that's where I had the sheep and the alpacas and all of that. And I was making a lot of real incredible discoveries for myself with using the silk and making my own color, and so I was really feeling very hot at the time creatively,
Mhm.
and Santa Barbara has this wonderful, they have many art groups, but they had an art group that wasn't oriented. As a matter of fact, it was fine art oriented. And I applied to have my studio be on their studio tour. And they don't tolerate what they call craft.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I am dyeing all of this silk. I'm making all these wearables, but what can I do to create something that's on canvas so that I can be considered, so it can be considered fine art. So that's how I started exploring these landscapes. And I really just fell in love with this process. So what this is several pieces of dyed silk overlapping each other. And what I found was that it was a really mysterious but kind of a fun abstract thing when I started putting the pieces together and choosing them. And you can tell by the way I chose them, I see sort of a landscape with perhaps a sky and mountains and water, but it's very abstract. And when I showed these pieces to the to the art group, they were just sort of bowled over. They couldn't understand how that could be fabric, one thing, and how it worked. And so I just to enhance the mystery, I just started calling them soul spaces because people look at it and they see different things. That's the great thing about abstract art, right? You look at
Right.
it and you might say, "Oh, that's a thunderstorm over the Arizona mountains," or somebody else might say, "Oh, that's I was in this place at one point in time, and that's bringing up a memory for me." And I think that's one of the things I really like about art is you look at something and you go, "Oh, that's touching a place inside of me." And whether the artist meant it or not, this could be the Smoky Mountains, uh and maybe the first time I was kissed. I don't know, like it's
Oh,
and it's kind of a thing where people can look at it and then just see where it touches them. And so that's why I call them soul space.
well, they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. And
Mhm.
I love the color. And I know everybody makes fun of me because Maya's asking about how do you do color? And so I won't ask that one because people make fun of me. But I will ask, how do you design? Do you like lay out pieces of paper or do you just, dye the silk and then put it together? Or how do you design
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a very intuitive process. So what I do is I have days where I'm just dyeing and I have several different weights of silk fabric. So that I've got lots of different textures and the fabric lays differently, and I'll just set up my dyes. These are all Procyon cold water dyes,
Hmm.
and I manipulate the fabric in different ways. And after doing it for so many years now, I can kind of predict, sort of, but sort of not. I again co-create with it. If I do certain things, I'm going to get certain effects. And as you can see, I'm trying not to get the straight lines of a shibori. I'm trying to get something that's more mottled. And so I'll just dye a bunch of fabric. I'll spend 2 days and dye yards and yards and yards of fabric in all different kinds of dye baths. And then at the end, I have this stack. And in my studio here, I have fabric hanging. I just pin it up on hangers that have the clips. And so I just have a palette of fabric, and I kind of just put it by spectrum, from the purples on through. And when I go to create, I just pull out a couple of pieces of fabric and I sort of look at the fabric, and the landscape thing has just kind of become a big theme of mine. So I'll look and say, well, is there something that looks sort of uh, skyish, and then sky, water, and land are the three things that I try to incorporate, and then I just start laying them out, and it's so much fun because if you just looked at those three pieces of fabric, you'd be like, huh? I don't get it. But then you just find the spot and you cut it and then you put it there, and it's just magical. It's kind of fun. It's just a magical process. So
Well, I love the color contrast. They're
yeah,
just that turquoise just pops. It's
yeah.
beautiful. It's
There's an
beautiful.
artist. Oh my gosh, I'm completely forgetting your name, my dear. If you're listening to this call, but she was saying how when she works intuitively, she auditions the different parts. So I love that, like, oh, bring this piece of
Too.
fabric over and audition.
Audition.
Do you do what would you add to this? Nope, you're not
I
gonna.
love that.
So
That's amazing. I will never sample the same way again because I'll be saying, I'm not sampling, I'm
I'm
auditioning.
auditioning, yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, well, my experience of you is that you're such a free spirit. And then I was surprised that you went to Catholic
Oh,
school. Now,
mhm.
all of you who went to Catholic school, you can go ahead and get mad at me, but my husband went to Catholic school, so I get it. Um, what a struggle it must have been for you to be in such most Catholic schools are pretty rigid, and you're this free spirit. How did you coexist with the other?
Well, that's an interesting question, and it's a question that I think creatively and artistically we, comes up a lot of like the structure and the play, right?
Hmm.
So if you walk into a room and there's just every possible material and they say just play with it, sometimes you can go with that, but they say, okay, now here's like the three rules, you have to make something that's whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that little bit of structure can be a real guide and just a really helpful thing a lot of times in our creativity. So I will say that to start out with. I mean, I'm old enough. I'm 70, so when I went to elementary school, it was literally, I mean, math was in Latin, it was like
Yeah, yeah.
old, old, old. So I had nuns and habits and all of that. But, I just think you are who you are. So, I found that there was ways to be creative, and I'm also a Gemini, so I'm able to sort of, I can sort of do the two things. I can be very creative outside of school and then just, sit in the row and do the stuff, that has to be done. But I have to say that it just got progressively more and more positives. I went to a Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school, which I had lots of creative opportunities there, and then a Catholic university in San Diego. And then by the time you're there, just the world is open to you, and so
And
I think it is a part of who I am for sure.
right. Well,
But
you took dance, right?
yes, yes, yes. So when I was in college, my first passion, the day that I walked into the Black Sheep and fell in love and said I was at home, I was already in love and passionate about modern dance. I did not do that when I was a kid. I did not take ballet classes or tap classes or anything. None of that. And then in college, I took a dance class and was just also smitten, and was very, very involved in dance. I actually ended up moving to New Jersey to study dance at Martha Graham School in New York. So I kind of have these dual passions. So again, sort of the Gemini thing. Uh, I don't know if that is a Gemini thing, but definitely dual passions.
Well, you use words such as habitat, layers, and discovery to describe a lot of your work. And the pieces that we're going to look at now, these have layers, and I just think they invite the viewer in to you just want to look inside that basket and you want to, I do at least, I want to lift up those pieces on the right and see what's under there. So would you share with us more about your choices of words and their meaning for you?
Well, I love that you say that you do feel invited in, and that is definitely something that I'm having in mind when I'm making art is, inviting the author in. And, when I say a habitat, I think it's, again, it's sort of that landscape. It's kind of a thing that I want people to feel like they can sort of uh, tap into it almost like an environment. And again, kind of that memory of, just, whoa, where does this take me, as far as how do I relate to this in my life? And the baskets, very fun that I started really adding all kinds of materials. And not that it was an original thought, but I just had a really fun time starting to add in materials. I started calling those my feathered nests, and
Yeah.
incorporating, yarn and fabric and just anything that I could think of to just add more color and texture, and people do seem to be really drawn to those. So um, yeah, so I think that's, that's it. And discover, play, explore, discover. That's my teaching mantra. Just, relax into it, have fun. We're as children, we're able to just play and play and play and play. And as adults, when I'm teaching adults, I try to remind them, that it's okay. I just play around a little bit, try to take some of that pressure off that we were talking about before, like with the really expensive materials. I
Yeah.
think fine materials is wonderful, but I also feel like, like you said, don't start from, trying to go for perfection, which is the opposite of creativity. So why do we even want to go there? You know?
Well, another statement from you, as you can tell, I love these statements from you. I could have read about you forever. It's like, oh yes, yes, that's a great one. Anyway, I play with elements of asymmetry, randomness, and organic spontaneity and
Mm,
natural flow. All right, so I'm going to be like the devil's advocate here. If you work in a medium like basketry and weaving, that it's you have to do a lot of pre-planning. There's not a lot of spontaneity. Well, some, I guess, but it's a lot of pre-planning. So how do you get that organic spontaneity? You kind of talked about it in the previous basket, but how do you do that?
yeah. So well, I mean, this piece that's hanging behind me. So I had to sort of plan out. There were 13 little looms that I was working on. And I had to plan out sorting the colors so that all 13, when I sewed them together, would go through a color, little color thing there. But if you look at the piece, um, once I started weaving, I just literally played. I mean, I was just going every which way and just trying to create all of those curvy organic shapes and the flow of it. And so once it was sort of set up just with the color, the structure, and what I know I wanted to go with, then came in the spontaneous playing and the organic. And I think that is very signature for me, Kathy. Um, but you're right, like, and I have gotten away from, I mean, in my lifetime, I've had, oh, I don't know, maybe six looms, floor looms, which I've loved having in my life. I currently do not have a floor loom. And I do enjoy, the whole planning and setting up on the one hand, but I really enjoy something like this where I set it up and then you just go and see what happens. See what happens. Yeah. And the basketry, I talked about the co-creating, with the natural materials, it's even more, there's more of an organic component. And that's what I really, really love. I just really love that.
Well, we're going to shift a little bit here and talk about women's woven voices. You have devoted so much energy in your life to this program. So, would you first just tell us about it for people who aren't aware of it?
Yeah.
First, tell us what it is, and then how did this begin? How did you decide to start this?
Yeah. We had a picture of it at some point earlier. Here we go. That's at Convergence in Tennessee. And yeah, so what is it? It was a project that invited women to reflect on their life story, and they were invited to write if they wanted to. And then the major component was to weave a story cloth, which just represented whatever it is that they wanted to represent in really any way they wanted to represent it, and then to share that. And they could share their story. Their written story, with whoever they wanted to confidentially and or publicly. But the woven story cloth, the way they could share that was by giving it to me to stitch into this tapestry. And so when I set up the project, my goal was to get 1,000 story cloths from people from around the globe, and stitch them into a continuous community collaborative tapestry. Um, And that's what happened. So, so this is just a portion of it. We had it the whole thing in Tennessee. I think there was maybe 100 or 1,010 story cloths in the tapestry at that point. And how did this all start? So this all started. Um, uh, I I told you earlier that I had moved a lot, so been living in California for a long time, and my family moved up to Washington. And while there, I had the opportunity to celebrate International Women's Day uh,
Mm,
by pulling together a team to put on a conference. And I had participated in one here in Santa Barbara, and uh, women's issues. I've raised two daughters, and women's
oh,
rights and women's issues and the health and thriving of women on our planet has just always been very important to me. Um, and so during this conference, women spoke about their experiences. They were very successful women who had done really wonderful things in their life. But as it turned out, that this theme of sexual abuse and of just inequality and just of uh, the issues that that women face really all around the globe just came out so strongly for me. And I thought, I have been making soulscapes and I've been, enjoying basketry. I've been doing all of these wonderful things, but I really want to do a project where, as an artist, it really speaks to um, what I think is really important, which is creativity, community, and compassion. And somehow, if there's any way that I could support women in their using their voice for whatever it is they think is important, certainly I think being treated respectfully and equally and have using your voice is really important. So that was kind of the basis of the whole thing. And so I just sort of decided that, I mean, it all kind of came to me that I had been teaching kids for years how to do straw weaving. And if people, I'm not talking about like bale straw, I'm talking about soda straws. And you put a warp through the straws and you just weave around the straws to create a weft faced cloth. And I had used it for in lots of different ways with kids. And I thought, this is simple. It doesn't take, the little loom is just totally portable, and I can teach anybody how to do this. And I think I could, this could be international because I could share this with people all over the world. And so I just started with, I was living in San Diego by then. And so I just started with a small group of, the people closest to my dropping the pebble in the pond, my first little wave of rings, my family, my daughters, my aunt, and my cousin, and we all wove. And then I just kind of started doing workshops and reaching out to art groups and to guilds and then to the universities and then to students and then to programs that were in the city for girls that were at risk for sex trafficking. And I just
mm,
did workshops. I did workshops with refugee women from Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And they all wove their stories, and it was so meaningful to them and so powerful that it just drove me on. And so over the course of 6 or 7 years, it just grew from one panel. I think I had two panels in Nevada at Convergence. That was a long time ago. Um, and I was just so thrilled, and I was handing out weaving kits I must have handed out 200 weaving kits to people there. And then lo and behold, people sent them back to me. But, it was all on the predicated on people taking the kit, reading about it. And then I set up a website, and the website had my instructional videos on it. And so I think that really thousands of people just went on and watched me show them how to put it together and learn how to weave. And I would say that many weavers did participate, but I would say the bulk of the participants had never woven before. So that's actually kind of a
oh,
side bonus, that I was able to introduce the weaving to them. And it was so perfect, Kathy, because no other medium. I mean, you're holding it in your hand, you have color, you have texture, and it's meditative and it gives you time to really think. And I had published on my website some questions for people to use to reflect on, so they could either write about them or just think about them. And is it okay if I tell a story? I'm telling it
Please do, please
now.
do.
So my signature story from this project is that one of the first participants was an 85-year-old woman, and she was happy to participate. And people are just say, I just say, weave however you want to. So some people do like a chronological thing, like each color represents something that happened in their life, and they weave in all significant events, and there's just every single thing represented in those. And just so I'm clear, each one of those little strips that you're seeing on your screen was woven by a different person. So that's probably, I would say 25, maybe 75. You're seeing different stories that are woven stories that are put together. Um, anyway, so this woman had been in an abusive relationship, but had survived, gone on to the next phase of her life. And so she wove her story cloth, and when she gave it to me, she said, Brecia, I did take the time to really think about my life while I was weaving, and she didn't do a lot of fancy color work. I think she just had some variegated yarn, and it was all just, variegated yarn. And she said, but I thought about the ups and the downs and all the different things that have happened to me and all the different things I've done. And she said, when I finished, I thought, I'm a strong woman. And she said,
Oh,
Risha, I'm 85 years old. I have never thought that before in my life.
oh,
And I just said, okay, that's it. That's why I'm doing this. So that really drove me on. And then I did many, many different collaborations with many, many different groups. But the final collaboration I did, which really was so heartwarming for me, was with a woman who was the art director for 10 different senior communities in California, um, independent living communities, assisted living communities, and memory care communities. And she said, I'd like to offer this as, to all the communities and as a project. And we did Zoom calls, and I provided all the kits, and we really gave a lot of support, and the sharing. We did lots of sharing groups and things. And it turned out that 700 seniors wove their story cloths and sent them to me. So that just, pushed the numbers all the way up to the 1,000 pretty quickly. And it was just
wow,
so beautiful.
700?
Yes, it was
That's
absolutely so beautiful. And we had all these different Zoom calls where they just loved, weaving their life, and then
mhm.
sharing in groups. And it was just, and of course, whatever your life was, I mean, there are many people represented who suffered a lot of different things. And yet, if you look at it, I think, what stands out is, you can just see there's all the children born and the grandkids and the graduations, and, there's the marriages, there's divorces, and there's disease, and there's death, and there's all of those things. And yet, look at that gloriousness of everybody's stories stitched together. And you can see I get very excited about it. And then I tied it all together with the red fringe, um, which I just kind of left up to people's interpretations. So yeah, it is a project that's really, really dear to my heart.
Oh, I
And
can't imagine it being anything less. I
yeah,
loved having it at Convergence because it was one of those things that, for me, if I had a minute or if I was going from part A, place A to place B, I would walk by it and see something else.
yeah.
It was
Oh,
it
oh.
was forever giving, and I could just keep discovering things when I walked by
Yeah,
it. It was
endlessly.
amazing.
You can kind of see in the picture, people were invited to embellish with whatever they wanted to put on their story cloth. And so there was just, there's thousands of embellishments that are so interesting to look at. And
What was some of the unusual ones?
oh my gosh, uh, people, well, let me think. There was, there were artists who put, there was a gourd artist who did gourd art and attached it to hers. There was poems, there was, uh, horsehair, there was human hair, there was, I put my Girl Scout pin on it, and many, many
Oh.
people would comment on that because, that was something that was important to me when I was growing up. And people did very artsy things with natural materials and feathers, and glass beads, and it was just, it really was endless. And people wove with yarn, of course, and plastic and rickrack and leather and uh, anything that you could think of that was stranded. So
Mandy, if you can't go to the next image, because there's an image I want to show.
oh, there's a
First, you
little
can
clip of
see a
it.
close up of
Yeah.
what
Uh-huh.
we're talking about, and like there's
Uh-huh.
beads and shells and all kinds of neat
Uh-huh.
things in there. But the other thing I want people to understand is if you look at the right picture, and I included this for a reason, just the logistics of doing this is huge.
Yeah, I have
The
the stand
packing it
for the
up and shipping it or getting it there. And I
yeah,
mean,
so shipping it isn't really an option for me. So that's why I drove to Tennessee from California.
oh
My car
gosh.
loaded with all of those stands because it has popped up in just dozens and dozens of women's uh, meetings and workshops and conferences and in public places and at museums and at galleries, and so I can pop it up onto these stands as I did at in Tennessee. But you're right, it is quite a bit. And then 2 years after Tennessee, I drove it to Chicago for a conference for a week, and it's it's not a small art piece. So
Well, thank you for your activism, that
you're
you
welcome.
are willing to take on a project such as this. It's amazing. It's
Um,
amazing.
it,
Um, if y'all ever get a chance, if it's on display again, if you get a chance, go see it. It
and
will.
then there's a website too, womenswovenvoices.com, if you
Okay, good,
check it out.
good. So what's next for you?
Yeah, well, I I'm going to say this, and I don't know. This is like one of those things where you're just kind of projecting ahead, but so, this little piece behind me, um, you know, we just saw the tapestry where everybody just was weaving, you just weave around the straws and make a straw weaving. But when I was teaching kids, I tried to find all different ways of things that we could do with the straw weaving. So how could you straw, weave in a curve? How could you make a circle? How could you do this? Crisscross cables, all different kinds of things. And so I have quite a collection, and I really haven't seen anything like that out there. So I was really thinking about maybe writing a book to share this incredibly simple way of weaving. And here we got this piece going into the Newport Gallery tomorrow. You can take it to any height that you want. So it's something that you can use. And as far as this project goes, I mean, that it is just open to anyone to take and run with it, go and do whatever you are inspired to do with it. And then I just thought, well, if I do the book, then I can tell a little bit about women's woven voices, but then I can just show people how you can use this straw weaving for, working with kids or for your own artwork, for your own artwork.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
that's great. And
kind of
we
exciting.
heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of hearing it here first.
Oh my gosh, you've said it out loud. Now you got to do it.
Right.
Well, we've got a few questions I want to ask you, and one of them was about the soul landscapes, the soul. Am I saying?
Oh, uh-huh.
They want to know, how did you adhere the silk to the canvas?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a gel medium. So you can buy gel medium. It's something that is used in art to sometimes uh whoa, the word just went, like to seal a surface of a painting. It's a gluey, sticky stuff, and it
Okay.
comes in matte and gloss and UV protected. And if you go to your art store and you look
Uh-huh.
at the paints, you'll find it, and it just seals it right on.
Oh, that's good.
Mhm.
Um, Now I'm going to pronounce this badly because I don't know how it's pronounced. Sandra Miller wants to know, have you ever had your studio in, it's Ojai.
Oh, oh, hi.
Oh, hi. Okay.
Oh, hi.
She said I can see the valley in your artwork.
Oh, well, Ojai is just our neighbor down the road.
There
We're
you go. There you
about a
go.
half an
Good
hour from
eye,
Ojai.
Sandra. Good eye.
Well, yes, and part of it is I did grow up in Arizona, And people always say, oh, you know, you can take the girl out of the desert, but you can't take the desert out of the girl. And
Yes.
there's no mistaking that I love a good turquoise and copper combination. That's my absolute favorite thing. So, so yes, yes. And I've had my work in Ojai before. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is from Jenny. She wants to know, have you ever had a studio at, and it's capital SCIART, Sky Art?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. She said,
Studio
I know
Channel,
I've met you somewhere.
Studio Channel Islands Art Center. Yes.
Okay.
I used to
All
be
right.
a member of Studio Channel Islands. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Uh,
And Liz Adams said, I just want to read this because she said, Brecia, thank you for working with women and their stories. So powerful. And it is true. It's wonderful
yeah.
that you're willing to do that. Vicky wants to know, how do you recommend getting art commissions? That's a
Oh,
huge question.
you know, that's a really huge question, and I am probably not the, the best person to answer that. I have recently gotten an art commission, and it was sort of terrifying to tell you the truth because I'm such a organic, spontaneous worker. But you know, I guess what I can say is the way that I got my art commission is that I am very involved in my local town's art center. I show my work at the art center. I sometimes participate in, you know, pop-up art sales, and you know, I'm just very active. And so someone locally who had a like an architecture digest built house that was just incredible here in town saw my work and then just contacted me and said, and actually, well, I do have to say, I think she did say that she had seen me talking about women's woven voices.
There you go.
There you go be an activist.
That's right.
Anyway, and then so then they commissioned some artwork for their home, which was really, it really was a fun thing. You know, it was I don't do a lot of commissions, but it really enjoyed doing two pieces for their house. Yeah.
Somebody wants to know, if you could collaborate with anyone or a group, who would it be?
Oh, that's wow.
Putting you on the spot here, Brecia.
You know, okay, well, I that's a really hard one. If I could collaborate with anyone, I don't know. You know, things are flooding up to me, but you know, I kind of want to say that I would love to collaborate with people who are environmentalists, who maybe
Hmm.
geologists or something. I'd love to collaborate with musicians. I'd love to collaborate with metal workers, you know. So you know, I would love to just take my what I have and then collaborate with somebody who does something completely different because you know, I collaborated with a restaurant
I know.
and that was just so incredible. So
That was. That's amazing.
like to collaborate with someone who has skills that are just very, very different, and it would be fun to see what we could come up with.
Well, I can't believe it, but we're out of time.
Wowza,
This
that
went
was so
fast.
much fun.
Risha, I'm so excited that you're here. It was wonderful to have you. I am
I
such a
loved it.
fan of what you do, not just artistically, but your women's woven voices. It's just amazing. And thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. I'm sure you've inspired people. I'm seeing the comments here, and they're all just fired up about doing something different, either with their artwork or some kind of activism. So thank you so
Wonderful.
much for being here
Thank
today.
you,
We do
Kathy.
appreciate it.
I loved being here and you know, love HGA. So
I hope I'll see you someplace soon.
I hope so too. I
Paths
hope
will
so.
cross again. We want to thank our sponsor for, oh, first, Brescia, if you want, go to her website. There's tons of stuff there. Go check it out. You can see more of her work. And then also, and I think someone posted it in here, the Women's Woven Voices website also. Yeah, womenswovenvoices.com. So you can check out both. She has two. And I think there's a link from one to the other. So you can get there from there. But go check that out. See her work and the Women's Woven Voices. It's pretty amazing. So thank you, Brescia, so much for being here. But we do want to thank our sponsor, Gail Trotter. Hope you enjoyed this, Gail. Brescia is pretty amazing. And thank you so much for being one of our Textiles and Tea angels and supporting Textiles and Tea. If you would like to sponsor an episode, you can go online and just purchase an episode, or if you're looking for a specific topic or a person, you can give us a call and we can work with you on that too. But when you sponsor a Textiles and Tea, it keeps the program going so that we can see more of these artists. So thank you, Gail. We appreciate it. Sorry. Spinning and Weaving Week. It's coming up fast. It's in October. It's just a couple of months away. So registration is open. We have 34 Art Sparks. Those were so much fun in the past. You get to make cool things or learn how to make cool things. We've got studio tours. Those are always great to see how other artists work in their environment. That's so wonderful. Thread Talks, lots of topics. And then we have vendors. You can check out vendors, what they're selling, new stuff, products, equipment, that sort of thing. And the timing is really good because we're getting ready to go into the holiday season in October. It'll give you enough time if you want to buy some yarn or a project for the holiday season. It'll be perfect. So check it out, October 6th through the 12th, 2025. You can go ahead and register now. And it's at weavespindye.org. You'll find it there. We do want to thank everyone who has supported HGA either by joining or donating. Your money helps us keep these programs going, whether it's Spinning and Weaving Week or Textiles and Tea or whatever, because it costs money for us to have Zoom. It costs money for us to have the software that we make these things happen. And we really appreciate when you join to support HGA or you make a donation. You can do that online at weavespindye.org. And you can either donate or join or both at weavespindye.org. Thank you so much. If you missed an episode, you can watch it again. Might want to watch this one again. It was pretty awesome. You can go to the HGA Facebook page, or you can go to HGA's YouTube page. Now, be aware, Facebook has changed their rules now, and we can only keep things up for 30 days. We used to be able to keep them up forever, but they've changed that. So if you want to watch something that's older than 30 days, you'll have to go to YouTube and sign up and subscribe, because when you do, you'll get a notice when a new episode's been uploaded. Next week, as Brecia had said, we've got Karen Silk. You think you know about silk? Wait till you hear her. This woman knows everything there is about silk, and there's so much. So join us next week. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Happy tea.